There are places in Japan you'll never find on a map. Places where trains stop, but should not exist. A platform where the lights flicker like dying stars, where the silence is suffocating, and where the path beyond leads only into black hills and endless night. Some say if you board the wrong train at the wrong time, you will arrive at such a place, a station called Kisaragi, and once you step onto its platform, you will never return. It begins with something ordinary, a late-night train home. The carriage is nearly empty, humming with fluorescent lights that seem too bright against the darkness outside. Passengers sit slumped in their seats, absorbed in silence, their reflections faintly mirrored in the black windows. But the minutes stretch on. What should have been a 20-minute ride bleeds into 30, then 40. The familiar city skyline vanishes. Neon lights and concrete melt into long, unbroken tunnels and landscapes no one recognizes. Forests pass by where no forests should be. Hills loom against the horizon with no towns, no roads, no sign of life. Station names are announced through the speakers, but they're unfamiliar, syllables that match no recorded stop, no place listed on any timetable. They sound wrong, distorted, almost dreamlike. A heavy stillness fills the air, the kind of silence that makes every creak of the train seem louder, every breath unnatural. It's as if the ride itself has slipped from the world people know into something else, something that should not exist. When the train finally slows, the screech of the brakes is deafening. The doors slide open, and beyond them lies a station no one has ever found on a map, Kisaragi. The sign is faded, cracked, as if it has been there for decades, though no record of it exists. The platform is deserted, bathed in pale fluorescent light that flickers and hums like dying insects. Moths swarm the bulbs. The concrete stretches into shadow. There are no staff, no ticket machines, no posted maps or schedules, only silence. Step off the train and the doors close behind you. The cars roll away into the night, vanishing into the dark. The sound of the wheels fades, leaving nothing behind. No train, no way back. Beyond the platform, a narrow road disappears into the foothills. It is here that the accounts always turn disturbing. The sound of a bell echoes faintly across the hills, hollow and out of place. And with it comes the sensation of being watched. Shadows shifting just beyond the glow of the platform lights. Footsteps that seem to match your own. Those who claim to have reached Kisaragi describe the same path. The road winds into the hills, bordered by woods that seem to breathe with the night. The air grows colder, heavier, the bell tolling louder as if luring travelers deeper. Figures move in the periphery, human silhouettes, distorted and incomplete. Some accounts mention voices drifting from the trees, warped and distant, as though bleeding in from another world. The watchers never come close, but they never leave either. The stories always end the same way. Online posts trailing off mid-sentence, real-time updates that stop suddenly, leaving only silence, no return, no explanation, just absence. Some dismiss it as a modern hoax, a creepypasta that got out of control. Others believe Kisaragi is older, rooted in the same Japanese folklore that speaks of cursed crossroads and phantom towns, places that exist between worlds, appearing only to those fated never to leave. Whatever the truth, the warning remains. If your train ride lasts too long, if the station names sound wrong, if the air grows heavy and unreal, do not step off when the doors open. Because once the sign above the platform reads Kisaragi, you've already gone too far. Our first tale brought us to a station that should not exist. But our second story is different. This one doesn't take place in the outside world at all. It hides inside a piece of writing. A simple poem printed in a book, passed down in whispers. They call it Tomino's Hell. And they say reading it aloud is enough to bring disaster or even death. The poem first appeared in a 1919 collection by a Japanese writer named Yamota Inuhiko. Its verses are strange and unsettling, fragmented images of suffering, punishment, and wandering through the underworld. On the surface, it reads like surreal symbolism, but in Japan, whispers soon spread that the words themselves carried a curse. The legend claims the poem describes a young boy named Tamino who dies and descends into hell. Each stanza outlines his torment, his passage through layer after layer of punishment. Some say the imagery mirrors Buddhist depictions of the underworld. Others claim it is something darker, an attempt to capture the unexplainable visions of the damned. Over time, the poem's reputation grew. Those who read it silently reported an uneasiness, a heaviness in the room, but those who dared to speak it aloud claimed worse: misfortune, illness, accidents, even sudden deaths. The warning spread. Tomino's hell should never be read with your voice. By the late 20th century, Tomino's hell had taken on a life of its own in Japan's growing world of urban legends. Stories circulated of students who read the poem aloud in classrooms, only to be stricken with sudden fevers or accidents in the days that followed. Accounts emerged of readers collapsing, struck with unexplainable sickness, or worse, dying soon after reciting its lines. The curse became so widespread that public readings were discouraged. Libraries noted the odd demand for the book, but the reluctance to handle it. In the early internet age, forums were filled with warnings against sharing the text, yet curiosity always lingered. People dared one another to recite it, chasing proof of the curse. Videos appeared online, grainy, distorted recordings of voices reading the stanzas aloud. Many of these uploads ended abruptly, cut off mid-verse. Comment sections filled with ominous messages. Viewers claiming their devices malfunctioned, that their rooms grew cold, that they heard whispers while listening. Whether coincidence or something more, the poem's reputation as a forbidden artifact of literature has only deepened. The words themselves are unsettling, not just for what they describe, but for how they feel. Fragmented, dreamlike, more like a nightmare translated onto paper. Tamino falls into darkness. He suffers punishments without explanation. He wanders through an underworld where his cries are never answered. Readers claim the imagery clings to them, lodging in the mind like a parasite. Some insist the curse comes not from the words themselves, but from the act of giving them breath. By speaking the verses aloud, you invite the same descent, calling Tamino's suffering into your own life. Skeptics dismiss it as coincidence, a blend of suggestion and fear magnified through folklore. But even skeptics admit something unsettling. The legend has endured for more than a century. The warnings have never stopped, and so the caution remains. The text can be read in silence, studied on the page, but the moment your voice gives it life, you risk stepping into Tamino's hell yourself, following him down into a place from which no one returns unchanged. Some poems are meant to be read. This one is meant to be feared. Our final legend takes us deep into the woods of Japan, to a place so infamous it has earned a name whispered with fear around the world. A forest at the base of Mount Fuji, where compasses spin, silence swallows sound, and travelers vanish without trace. Some call it simply Aokigahara, others call it the Suicide Forest. Aokigahara lies on the northwestern base of Mount Fuji, a sea of dense trees stretching for miles. The forest floor is tangled with gnarled roots, hardened by centuries of volcanic rock. Sunlight struggles to penetrate the canopy, leaving the ground in a dim twilight even at midday. Step inside, and the world outside vanishes. The sound of the wind, the hum of the city, even the distant murmur of life, it all falls away. The silence here is suffocating. Travelers describe it as oppressive, like walking into a place designed to erase human presence. Compasses are said to malfunction within its depths, spinning wildly, refusing to point north. Trails twist and vanish among the trees, and the deeper one goes, the more the forest seems to fold in on itself. Many who wander too far never find their way back. For centuries, Aokigahara has been linked with death. Folklore describes it as a place haunted by yurei, restless spirits bound by grief and rage. In ancient times, it was rumored to be a site of ubasut, the abandonment of the elderly in desperate famine years. Whether truth or legend, the association with death has lingered. In the modern era, the forest gained its reputation for something far darker. Okigahara became a site where many chose to end their lives. Even today, signs are posted near the entrances, urging visitors to turn back, to think of their families, to seek help. But the reputation has only deepened. Explorers report coming across belongings scattered through the trees, shoes, wallets, tents, ropes, markers left by those who entered but never returned. Some objects are faded and weathered, others disturbingly recent. Each one tells a silent story, abandoned mid-sentence, of lives cut short among the roots. The forest does not hide these tragedies. It absorbs them, leaving the air heavy with sorrow, the silence deeper than before. Those who walk its paths speak of strange sensations, the feeling of being watched, figures glimpsed between the trees that vanish when approached, whispers carried on air that should be still. Some explorers follow tape lines left behind by past visitors, only to find the tape cut, or leading them in circles until they're back where they started. Locals insist the forest is alive with the presence of the dead, yurei, whose anger and despair cling to the living. White figures reported moving soundlessly through the trees, distant cries that never draw nearer, never fade away. Travelers who enter alone sometimes describe a growing compulsion to go deeper, as if the forest itself is pulling them in. Whether these are hauntings, tricks of the mind, or something older woven into the roots of the land, no one can say. But the truth is undeniable. Aokigahara is a place where death lingers, where sorrow seeps into the soil, where silence is more terrifying than sound. And once you step into its depths, you may discover the forest doesn't want you to leave. Some places hold the living, others keep the dead. And in Aokigahara, the line between the two has already been erased. From the phantom trains of Kisaragi Station, to the cursed verses of Tamino's Hell, to the haunted silence of Aokigahara Forest, Japan's legends remind us that fear doesn't only live in myths. It lingers in the stations we ride through, the words we read, and the forests that wait just beyond the city lights. If you enjoyed tonight's descent into these darker corners of Japan's folklore, make sure to like this video and subscribe. I share new stories like this every week, true horrors, cursed legends, and the things that slip through the cracks of our world. And as always, be careful where the shadows take you. And on a serious note, if you or someone you know is struggling, you're not alone. I've left resources in the description below where you can find help, including the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Please take care of yourself. When I was 12 years old, I lived in a quiet Japanese town where nothing ever seemed to happen. People left their doors unlocked, and children walked home from cram school without their parents worrying. I had a routine. Every evening, I would take a shortcut through the narrow shopping street to get back to my neighborhood. During the day, it was always busy, filled with vendors calling out, people buying groceries, and the smells of food stalls drifting through the air. But by the time I passed through, the shutters were pulled down, the signs flickered dimly, and the entire place felt like a long, echoing tunnel of empty storefronts. Most nights it didn't bother me. It was quiet, sure, but familiar. I knew every bend in the road, every corner, every vending machine. But on one night in late autumn, something about the walk felt different. The rain had just ended, and the ground reflected the neon lights above like a broken mirror. The silence was heavy, almost too heavy, and it struck me how empty everything felt. No footsteps except my own. No passing cars in the distance, not even the faint buzz of cicadas in the trees nearby. It was as though the entire street was holding its breath. It was in that silence that I first felt it, the sensation of being watched. Not the kind of paranoia you shake off after a few steps, but a pressure that grew heavier with every movement I made. My grip on my school bag tightened as I walked faster, but no matter how quickly I moved, I couldn't shake the sense that someone was following close behind, just far enough that I couldn't see them. At the far end of the street, beneath a flickering orange street lamp, I finally saw her, a tall woman in a beige coat, standing perfectly still. Her head hung slightly forward, long black hair covering most of her face. The only thing clearly visible was the surgical mask stretched across her mouth. She didn't shift her weight, she didn't turn her head, she just stood there, rigid, as if she had been waiting the whole time for me to arrive. I froze. My first thought was that she was just another passerby, maybe someone heading home late, but the longer I looked, the more wrong it felt. There was nothing natural about how still she was, as though she wasn't breathing. Then I heard it, faint but sharp, the metallic snap of scissors opening and closing, somewhere in the silence. At first I thought I imagined it, but it came again, clearer this time, echoing off the walls of the alley. My stomach twisted as the stories I'd overheard at school rushed back. Whispers of a woman whose mouth had been cut open ear to ear, who hid behind a mask until the moment she revealed the wound. They called her Kuchisake Onna, the slit-mouthed woman. My chest grew tight. The stillness of the air, the way the street seemed longer than usual, the sound of scissors that didn't belong. All of it made me realize that what I was seeing wasn't just someone standing under a light. It was something else, something that should have stayed in the old stories. I turned and walked faster, my shoes slapping against the wet ground. Every step echoed louder than it should have, bouncing down the narrow alleys. And behind that sound came another, the unmistakable snapping of scissors, steady and patient, following me no matter how far I went. I didn't dare look back, I just kept running. But the streets betrayed me. Corners that should have led to my neighborhood only curved into tighter alleys. Vending machines I'd passed 100 times weren't where they should be. The town I thought I knew had twisted into a maze designed to keep me lost. No matter which way I turned, the sound of scissors followed. Finally, after what felt like hours, I stumbled onto the main road. Traffic passed, lights glowed, and the heavy pressure in my chest seemed to lift. When I turned back, the alley was empty again. Normal, ordinary, like nothing had ever been wrong. But that night never left me. For weeks after, I avoided that street, but it didn't matter. I started seeing her in other places. On the far side of the train platform, standing at the corner of a foggy intersection, always still, always watching, her mask hiding something I never wanted to see. And sometimes, in the silence, I still hear it, that metallic snap, faint but steady. The sound of scissors, a reminder that she hasn't gone anywhere. She's just waiting for me, or for someone else who's foolish enough to walk alone. When I was in high school, I sometimes stayed late at school for extra lessons. By the time I headed home, the streets were nearly empty and the train station was always quiet. I lived in a smaller Japanese town, the kind where the stations weren't busy after dark. You'd hear the loud rush of trains during the day, but at night, only silence filled the platforms. That evening, I arrived just after the last rush of commuters had cleared. The platform was nearly deserted. Fluorescent lights hummed faintly above, casting everything in a pale, unnatural glow. The tracks below glistened with a thin sheen of moisture from earlier rain, and the cool air carried a damp smell of rust and concrete. I remember pulling out my phone, glancing at the time, and realizing how alone I was. Even in the distance, I couldn't see another person. No station attendants, no other passengers. Just me, the lights, and the hollow emptiness of a place built for crowds that had already gone home. It should have been peaceful, but something about that silence put me on edge. My footsteps echoed too loudly when I shifted. My breathing sounded too sharp in the still air. And soon, that uneasy silence began to feel less like emptiness, and more like waiting. It started with a sound. At first, I thought it was just the station settling, a pipe clicking or a piece of metal shifting. But then it came again, sharper this time. A dragging, scraping rhythm that didn't fit with anything natural. It wasn't footsteps. It was too uneven, too sharp, almost like something slamming against the floor. The sound carried across the platform, bouncing along the tiled walls. I froze, staring down the long stretch of concrete, and that's when I saw movement. She emerged from the shadows near the far end of the platform, and my brain struggled to make sense of what I was seeing. It was a girl, or at least part of one. Her body ended at the waist, cut clean through, her skin pale and glistening under the lights. Her arms slammed against the concrete, elbows cracking with each movement, dragging her forward at a speed that shouldn't have been possible. Her long black hair streaked behind her, scraping along the ground, leaving faint wet marks wherever it touched. Every slam of her arms sent that horrible rhythm echoing through the station. Tech, tech, tech. The sound was steady, relentless, each movement pulling her closer with unnatural speed. Her eyes locked forward, wide and furious, and the only thing louder than the sound of her body was the pounding of my own heartbeat. I don't remember making the choice to run. My body just reacted, spinning me toward the exit as fast as I could move. My shoes slapped against the floor, echoing down the platform. But no matter how fast I went, the sound behind me grew louder. Tech, tech, tech. It was faster now, desperate. Each slam of her arms against the floor came quicker, closer, closing the distance in bursts of noise that felt like they were right behind me. The air itself seemed to vibrate with the rhythm, the echo bouncing in my ears until I could barely hear my own breathing. I sprinted through the ticket gates, the world outside hitting me in a blur of cold air and silence. The empty road stretched ahead, streetlights casting pale circles of light on the asphalt. I didn't dare stop until my lungs burned and my legs ached. When I finally turned back, the station entrance stood still and quiet, as though nothing had happened. No movement, no sound, just glass doors reflecting the dim glow of the streetlights. But that night never left me. Sometimes, when I pass train stations after dark, I hear it again, a sharp, broken rhythm echoing faintly, just out of sight. The sound of hands slamming against concrete, dragging something forward. The sound of teke teke. When I was in middle school, my town still had an older public park that most people avoided after dark. It had a playground, a row of vending machines, and an old public restroom tucked away near the trees. The building was concrete, with faded tiles and lights that flickered weakly when they worked at all. One night, after walking home late with a friend, I cut through the park alone. By then, the streets were empty, and the park felt even emptier. The swings creaked in the wind, the vending machines buzzed faintly, and the air carried that damp smell of wet earth and rusted metal. That was when I realized I needed to use the restroom. I almost kept walking. The building had a reputation even during the day, but the longer I tried to ignore it, the more uncomfortable I became. I convinced myself it would be quick. The lights inside glowed faintly, and I pushed the heavy door open, stepping into the silence of chipped tile and cracked mirrors. Public restrooms are unsettling at night no matter where you are. The echo of each step, the drip of water from a leaking faucet, the way every sound seems to stretch out too long. But in that particular restroom, the air was heavy, like it didn't want me there. I stepped into one of the stalls and slid the door shut. The latch scraped against metal, echoing louder than it should have. For a moment, everything was still. Just the faint hum of the light above and the quiet drip of water in the distance. Then, without warning, the silence shifted. It wasn't broken by a voice or footsteps, but by something more subtle, a change in the air, as if someone else had entered without sound. The temperature dropped slightly, enough for me to see a faint mist when I exhaled. They say Akamanto appears in bathrooms just like this one. A masked spirit draped in a red cloak, waiting for someone unlucky enough to be alone. The legend says it offers you a choice: red paper or blue paper. Red means a bloody, violent death. Blue means strangulation, your body drained of air until your face turns blue. But what makes the legend truly terrifying is that there's no correct answer. No matter what you choose, the ending is always the same. Sitting in that stall, I didn't see anything, but I felt it. The weight of a presence leaning close, waiting. I could almost sense the cloak shifting behind the door, brushing against the floor, patient and silent. I unlatched the stall and pushed the door open, my heart hammering so loudly I could barely hear anything else. The restroom was empty, no footsteps, no sound, just the flickering fluorescent light above the cracked mirrors. But as I moved toward the exit, the sense of being watched grew heavier. The mirrors along the wall reflected my movement, but in the corner of one reflection, for a fraction of a second, I thought I saw it. A figure draped in red, face hidden behind a smooth mask, standing impossibly still in the shadows behind me. I stumbled out of the restroom into the cool night air, the park stretching out in silence. The swings no longer creaked. The vending machines no longer buzzed. It was as if the world itself had stopped to listen. For weeks after, I avoided that park completely, but I learned something important. A.K. Manto doesn't belong to one restroom or one building. The stories say he can appear anywhere. There are stalls, anywhere you're alone. It's not about the place, it's about the moment when you're most vulnerable, and if you ever feel the air shift, or the lights flicker, or the silence grow too heavy when you're sitting in a restroom stall alone, don't wait for the choice to be offered. Because once you hear the question, it's already too late.